If you were here last week, you know that we did a little time traveling last week, and we got to know Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat just a little bit better through the stories. This morning, you can't believe who's here. King David decided to visit us this morning, if you can believe that. And he has an amazing story today. So let's give it up for King David.
Hello. I bring you greetings. My name is David. How easily that rolls off my tongue. King of Israel, son of Jesse, King David. You know, I am here in your fair city because I am here to help your entertainment industry to lobby to try to get a little tougher regulations on all these, what do you call them, paparazzi, and all those who would splash people's most intimate secrets across the front page of the tabloids. I have a little experience of that myself. I tell you, it's the most humiliating and humbling thing in the world when your deepest, darkest secrets show up on the front pages. And while I do have a little bit of softness in my heart for your celebrities, I must say that TMZ and the National Enquirer are nothing compared to having your story written in the Bible. The book that's been translated into 2,883 languages so far. The book that, as much as I may try to say that this is not an authorized biography of my life, many people assume is the most authorized book that's ever been written. And so I think you all have heard the story before, so I might as well just read it to you as it comes from the Deuteronomist who wrote 2 Samuel. And so I would like to have you listen carefully as I read this story, but as I do, understand that this is not just God's word, this is about my life. In the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle, David sent Joab with his officers and all of Israel with him. They ravaged the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David, me, remained in Jerusalem. It happened late one afternoon. They make it sound very dramatic, doesn't it? I mean, I think if I had had my say, I would have tweaked a couple of things about this. It happened late one afternoon when I rose from my couch and was walking about on the roof of the king's house, that I saw from the roof a woman who was bathing. The woman was very beautiful. In the Hebrew, it says she was beautiful exceedingly. I sent someone to inquire about the woman. It was reported, this is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. And so I sent messengers to go get her. And she came to me, and she laid with me. Now she was purifying herself after her period. And then she returned to her house, and the woman conceived. And she sent word and told me, I am pregnant. You know, it's interesting reading what they say about me and the way that they go about putting this together. They start off with that sentence. I feel like I'm a bit on the psychiatrist's couch here, but I guess it is relevant that it happened in the springtime when normally the kings go off to war. There probably is something to that, you know. They say that 90% of fighting temptation is found in the geography, making sure that you're not in the wrong place at the wrong time with nothing to do and too much time on your hands. That when you're in the wrong place, it's very hard to make the right choices. And I guess that was true here. You know, I wasn't sure exactly where I was supposed to be. There was a time when I would have been with them. I should have been with them there on the battle lines. You know, I used to be a stud. They used to sing about me. When Samuel anointed me, he said, David, you're the one. Basically, he said, David, you're the man. That was me. I was the one that everyone talked about. But now I was 47 years old. I wasn't sure exactly where I belonged, where I was supposed to be. And so I stayed behind at the palace that spring. I sent Joab, my commander, off to fight my battles for me. And it was there. I walked out onto the roof of my palace, looked down over all that I had built, all that God had given to me. I don't know if you've ever been to Jerusalem. It's a beautiful, beautiful land, a hilly country. Jerusalem is built on top of the highest hill, the highest thing for miles and miles around. The only thing higher in Jerusalem was the temple than my palace roof. I could look down over everything and everyone to see all that God had given to me and sworn to my protection. And then I saw the one thing that God had not given me. She was bathing on her roof. I didn't go out on my palace roof that day thinking that I was going to be committing adultery and ruining my life. And I'm sure she wasn't thinking that either. I'm sure she wasn't assuming. She was in one of the houses that was right around the palace. The only thing higher than her rooftop would have been mine. And I'm sure she wasn't thinking that her king was going to be staring at her. But I couldn't take my eyes off of her. You know, the Deuteronomist had commanded that the kings of Israel just be careful about three things: too many wars, too much wealth, and too many women. Deuteronomy 17. Well, 2 out of 3 isn't bad, is it? I had a bit of a reputation by the time I arrived in Jerusalem. I already had 7 wives, and this Bible that insists on prying into every detail of my life, says that I picked up many more wives and concubines when I was in Jerusalem. I sent a messenger to try to find out who she was, and they came back and told me that she was Bathsheba, the wife of one of my most loyal lieutenants, Uriah the Hittite. And suddenly I had this battle raging inside of my mind. I mean, I'm the king of Israel. I'm probably the most powerful man in the world at this time. There was nothing that would be denied from me if I just asked for it, right? After all I had done for this country, I deserved whatever I wanted, didn't I? I deserved this one little pleasure, didn't I? It's amazing what we can fool ourselves into believing when we try to rationalize to ourselves. Your theologian, Eugene Peterson, wrote another book about me, my life, called Leaping Over the Wall. In it, he tried to divide my life into 2 sections, the rising years and the reigning years. And you know, as I think about it, it's kind of an interesting thought. I mean, most of our lives could be divided that way, couldn't they? The rising years when we're trying to get our education and we're jumping through hoops and we're trying to prove ourselves and make something of ourselves. And then at some point, that time comes when we get our first job and we start making money and we move out on our own and we start having responsibility. We start having power. Sometimes over just our spouses or our children. Sometimes it's over employees or colleagues or communities or situation. When that time comes, we have to make some important decisions about how we're going to use our power, aren't we? And so I sent for her. It was the easiest thing I had ever done. In no time, she was there. We spent the night together, and I ushered her out quickly the next morning. You know, it wasn't exactly a beautiful courtship. I didn't know her favorite meal or if she liked coffee in the morning or any of her childhood stories. I didn't know much about her at all, considering all the biblical knowing that was going on that night. The way the Bible makes it sound like we didn't even say one word to each other until she came back a few days later to say, I'm pregnant. I felt like my entire world was crashing around me. And immediately I started doing what I know how to do so well. I went into damage control. I started managing the situation, taking care of it. Something I do all the time. Now I know you all know the story. I mean, for all the biblical illiteracy that this generation has, why is it that everyone knows the details of my story? I sent for Uriah. I had him come back to the palace for a little R&R. I told him to go home and enjoy his wife. But would you believe it? The man was so admirable that he refused to go home and spend the night with his wife when all of our comrades and our fellow soldiers were out there dying and sleeping on the battlefield. I even kept him there an extra night and got him drunk, hoping that he'd forget about all of his damn principles. Would you know, even wasted, he was 10 times the man that I had been. And he refused to go in. I was desperate. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn. You all had that rabbi of yours come last week, that Michael Gottlieb, to teach a class about me. Again, another unauthorized story about me. And I don't think I didn't see what the title of that class was. He said that I did the coldest thing he had ever seen anyone do in all of human history. And he might be right, but I didn't know what else I could do. Sending Uriah back to the battlefield with a sealed note in his hand for Joab, his own death warrant, unknowingly carrying his own death certificate with him back to Joab. In it, I told Joab to put him out in the front of the front lines of the fiercest battle, and then right when it was terrible, to pull all the other soldiers away so that he would be killed. And it happened. It happened. And I felt like it was taken care of. The situation had been handled. I waited for the mandatory mourning period. I took Bathsheba into my palace. I made her one of my wives, and I thought we were home free. Until that prophet came along. That prophet, Nathan, came to the palace, and he wanted to see me. And so I saw him, and he wanted to tell me a story. It was so weird at first. It was the story about two men who lived in a certain village. One was rich, and he had all sorts of flocks and cattle, hundreds and hundreds of sheep. And about another man in the village, a poor man, who was so poor he could only afford to buy one little ewe lamb. And he kept it like a family member, like a part of his own family pet. He raised it along with his daughters. He allowed it to drink out of his cup and eat from his table. He slept with the lamb at night in his bed. And then one day a guest came not to visit the poor man, but to visit the rich man. But the rich man was so greedy, he didn't want to kill one of his hundreds and hundreds of sheep to serve to the visitor. And so he stole this little ewe lamb from the one poor man and slaughtered it in order to feed his guests. Now, Nathan knew exactly what he was doing. He knew that before I was all of this and had all of this, what I used to do for a living, I was a shepherd. He knew that story was going to get to me, and it did. My blood was boiling. I was so angry, I couldn't see straight. I yelled out at Nathan in heartbreak and in fury. I said, "Surely as God lives, this man deserves to die." And Nathan didn't skip a beat. He stuck his big bony finger right in my face, and he said, "David, you are that man." Well, I've taken a lot of serious blows in the heat of battle, but I have never felt a blow that hit as deep or as hard as those 4 words and that bony finger. You know, it was a bit of a paradox, because in that moment I felt like I had totally been crushed, and yet at the very same moment I felt this incredible weight lifting off of my shoulders. I felt like I couldn't breathe, and yet I felt like I was taking my first breath of fresh air in months. You all have to know what it's like when you do something that you never thought you were capable of doing, and then you end up doing all sorts of things you never thought that you could do to try to cover up that thing that you never thought that you could do. I fell down to my knees in front of his knowing eyes. I said, I've sinned against my God. Now, I knew that I had sinned against Bathsheba and Uriah, that I had sinned against Joab and all of my men and my entire nation and all of our citizens. But I had sinned before God first and foremost, because I had betrayed more than just a marriage covenant, more than just the commandment not to kill. I had betrayed the trust that God had put in me, the dream that God had placed in my heart for who I should be and what our nation could possibly become. The reason that I'm here today, not just to lobby with the entertainment industry to try to make sure I have a say in some of the things that are written about me. The reason I'm here today is to let you know that of all the issues that I have with this book prying into all the details of my life, the only thing that's written here that's not deserved is what it says about me after I confessed and repented. Like what was going on was some great show of my courage or my faithfulness or my moral fiber or my relationship with God. You know, it was easy to confess when I didn't have anywhere else I could run or hide. The real hero of this story, the real patriot of this story, was Nathan. It's amazing what he was willing to do. He knew the risk that was involved. He knew what it would mean if he came and challenged me. He knew that I could have had him disappear like that, and nobody would have ever seen him or even mentioned his name again. And yet somehow he actually knew that the dream that God had placed in my heart and in the heart of our nation to be a place of freedom and equality and compassion and justice, that dream was going to be even stronger than my ability to compromise it and betray it and let it down. So he spoke up. He told me the truth at the time when I needed to hear the truth the most. And you know, our country went on to become an exceptional country, a beacon of light for the rest of the world. But it wasn't because of people like me. It was because of people like Nathan who were willing to stand up and speak out, to protect our ideals and our principles and the dream that we were all founded on. The reason that I've come here to your sanctuary today is I understand this weekend you're celebrating this birthday of your country, you call Independence Day or 4th of July. And the reason that I've come to you today is because I see a lot of similarities between your nation and my life. Founded on these God-given dreams to bring justice and equality and compassion into our world. You all in your reigning years, just as I was, given this incredible power that you have to decide very carefully what you're going to do with it. I see that, like me, you all usually use it for good. You all give away more money in aid to more countries than any other country by far. You stand up for those who have no one to stand up for them. You give a voice to those who don't have a voice. You come to the aid of those who are oppressed and abused. But also, like me, it looks like there are times when you get yourself into precarious predicaments. You end up doing things that go against your ideals and the dream that God had placed in your heart. That at times you're too embarrassed to admit that what you're doing is wrong. And so you make excuses and you try to cover things up and pretend that flags don't have the meaning that their flags actually have. That the tension and the pain and suffering in your inner cities isn't really there, or it's not really something you have the ability to do anything about. So I'm here to say that you all need Nathans in your life as a nation as well. You know, the way my nation was set up, it wasn't up to my citizens to challenge me. That was the role of the prophet. But the way I understand the way your nation was set up, it was set up with the idea that you would be the Nathans for your own country. Is that right? That you all would be the ones to make sure that the dream stayed alive, that the ideals and the ideas were kept in the center of everyone's heart, that when your country started to make mistakes or stray or do things that were against their ideals in the same way that I did, that you all would be the Nathans who would come and stand up and speak out and make sure to protect and guard the dream. I needed a Nathan in my life. I think so does everybody. We do live in a pretty amazing place, don't we? But what makes America great isn't our way of life. It's not our wealth or our power or our dominance in the world. What makes us great is this dream that we are founded on. These ideas and ideals that we will never fully live into, but we're always being called to try to pursue even more fervently and more fully, to try to make this dream come alive. Which means that real patriotism isn't about protecting borders or real estate or political dominance. Real patriotism isn't about loyalty to some political system or economic system or to some fatherland, even though we love this land and our country very much. Real patriotism is about our willingness to protect the dream, to protect the concept, to protect the ideas and the ideals, even if that means that, like Nathan, we need to stand up and speak out. Your country has never expected anything less from you. Enjoy your 4th of July celebration. Amen.